Hoy, en su programa Hablando de los Royals, tendremos una entrevista con el líder histórico de juegos salvados de los Reales de Kansas City, Jeff Montgomery. En la entrevista nos contará detalles sobre su vida personal y profesional con el equipo de Kansas City. Ya regresamos. Hola, soy Carlos Parra Machado y estos son Notas de Béisbol. Como les comenté en la introducción, en nuestro programa Hablando de los Royals, hoy tenemos un entrevistado de gala. Nos referimos a Jeff Montgomery, el líder salvador histórico de la divisa de Kansas City con 304 juegos salvados. En su carrera, que se extendió por 13 años, ganó 46 juegos, perdió 52 y tuvo una efectividad de 3.27. En la entrevista que tendremos a continuación, nos habló de detalles sobre su vida profesional y su ascenso en las menores con los Rojos de Cincinnati para luego alcanzar el estrellato como relevista de élite con los Reales de Kansas City. Espero que la entrevista sea de su agrado. Antes de iniciar la entrevista, les recuerdo, por favor, si no lo han hecho, que se suscriban a nuestro canal Notas de Béisbol y le den a la campanita para ser notificados de nuevos videos. Y si el video es de su agrado, por favor, recuerden denle like. Sin más preámbulos, en nuestro programa Hablando de los Royals, en nuestro canal Notas de Béisbol, los dejamos con la entrevista hecha a Jeff Montgomery. Before starting the interview, Mr. Montgomery, I want to welcome you to Hablando de los Royals, talking about the Royals, a program on our channel, Notas de Béisbol, Baseball Notes. It's an honor to have one of the Royal historic pitchers join us of our favorite team show.
Thank you, Carlos. I'm happy to be a part of your show today.
Okay. As I checked in your biography, you were born in Wellston, Ohio, of January 7th in 1962. What can you comment of your childhood in that city? What sport did you play in your high school?
Well, first of all, it makes me feel very old, 1962. I just had a birthday, so I'm 59 years old. But I feel good. Going back to my days in Ohio, I was in a very small town, and I had the opportunity to play a lot of sports. I played baseball, football, and basketball. And it was just season to season to season. I loved all of my sports, but I have to be honest, baseball was my favorite sport. So having the chance to, after high school in Wellston, Ohio, go on to play college baseball was a dream come true for me.
How was the influence that your parents, Tom and Mary Montgomery, had on your love of the sport?
Well, they were very instrumental in my ability to play sports. They were always very supportive of me. My father coached me all the way through American Legion baseball, which is 18 years old. And my mom was very athletic. My mom would be in the front yard playing catch with me. And sometimes she would even put on the catcher's gear and catch me if I needed a catcher. If my father was not available or my brother was not around, my mom would be my catcher for me. So it was really nice to have parents that were athletic and parents that were very supportive.
What was your favorite sport in your youth?
I love playing sports, but I always look forward to baseball season because it meant warm weather. In Ohio, it gets very cold in the wintertime. So football was fun, but it was obviously hard on the body, all the contact and everything involved with football. Basketball was a fun sport. It was indoors, but I was nowhere near the best player on my team. And I always, again, look forward to baseball season coming right after basketball and, meaning springtime, meaning warm weather and playing a sport that I had, excelled at. And I had more abilities for baseball than any other sport because in baseball, you don't have to be 6 feet 5 inches tall and weigh 225 pounds. I was 5 feet 10.5 inches and weighed 175 pounds. So I was able to practice hard and work hard and become very good at playing baseball.
Can you tell me about your performance in sport while you studying at Weston High?
Yeah, playing all three sports at Wellston was good for me because it gave me the chance to be a very well-rounded athlete. I didn't have to focus on just one sport. I could play all sports and enjoy sports, and almost everybody on my team would play more than one sport. It wasn't like we specialized in just playing that one sport of either baseball, football, or basketball, or track, or whatever the other sports might be. It gave us a chance to really um, work hard and being good athletes, not just a good baseball player or a good football player, but very good athletes.
What was your favorite major league player in your childhood?
Well, I grew up in Ohio, and at the time, the Cincinnati Reds were very, very good. The Big Red Machine, and my favorite player of all time was Pete Rose. I love the way that Pete Rose hustled on the field. He gave 100% all the time, and he was not a player who was gifted with a lot of physical abilities, but he worked hard and he got the most out of all of the abilities he was blessed with. So it made me really aspire to get the most out of what I had. And Pete Rose was the player I looked up to, and I had many favorites. I loved, um, Johnny Bench and Tony Perez and Davey Concepcion and all the other players, Joe Morgan on that Big Red Machine team. But I have to admit, Pete Rose was my favorite.
Tell me about David Concepcion. There are a Venezuelan player like me, a Venezuelan. He's from Venezuela. And tell me about David Concepcion.
Well, the thing I remember more about David Concepcion is the way he made me feel, because eventually I had a chance to be in spring training camp and make it to the major leagues with the Cincinnati Reds, and David Concepcion was right there, and he was a veteran player who made younger players, rookie players, feel very important, and he was always had a smile on his face, and he was so smooth in the field, and just a guy that you could always rely on to be a very, very dependable shortstop, and a guy that got the job done every day he went out there.
It is true that a street in your hometown has your name.
I'm sorry?
It is true that a street in your hometown has your name.
Oh, yes. I was honored when my hometown honored me by naming the street next to the field that I played high school baseball on. They named it after me. So I have to be very respectful when I go back home.
When you received a scholarship to study at Marshall University, what did you study at that university and what sport did you play there?
Yeah, so when I was a kid growing up in Ohio, everybody wanted to be an Ohio State Buckeye. Everybody wanted to go to Ohio State. And that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to Ohio State and play baseball. And they recruited me, but eventually telling me that I did not have the ability to play in the Big Ten. And then my next choice was Miami of Ohio. They said no. My next choice was Ohio University. They said no. My fourth choice was Marshall University, and they gave me a very nice scholarship and an opportunity to go and play baseball on the baseball team at Marshall. And the good thing about it was going to a smaller school, it gave me the opportunity to play early in my college career. And my freshman year, I was able to play, from the first start of the season. I didn't have to earn my spot in the pitching staff. I was basically given opportunities early on, and that was instrumental for me in becoming a better player.
What was your performance as a baseball player at Marshall University?
Oh gosh, my freshman season, we won the Southern Conference Championship, so that was really special to me. And I was fortunate to have a chance to pitch in a couple of really, really big games my freshman year to help us win that championship. So I think my freshman season probably be my favorite memory of my baseball career at Marshall. Now, the most special part about my experience at Marshall University was I met my wife my freshman year. So, and we're going to be celebrating our 37th wedding anniversary in about a week. So
Wow.
I got more out of baseball than just I got more out of Marshall than just baseball.
Did you only play as a pitcher or did you play other positions?
Only a pitcher after high school. And after my junior season at Marshall, my coach asked me to start working on playing infield. I was a good infielder in high school, but when I went to Marshall, we had a really good shortstop who was an all-conference shortstop, and he had 2 years of eligibility left. So I wasn't going to have much opportunity to play shortstop early on. So I pitched instead. And but once that player graduated from Marshall, I was going to maybe have a chance to play shortstop and pitch my senior year. But the Cincinnati Reds drafted me after my junior season, so I never went back to play in my senior year at Marshall University.
Okay, you were selected by the team you were a fan, Cincinnati Reds, in the 9th round of 1983 draft. How did you find out about your pick?
Yeah, it was before the internet, so I didn't have the ability to learn fast. I don't remember what day the draft was on, but I think it was on a Wednesday. And it wasn't until like Thursday or Friday that I learned that I had been drafted by the Cincinnati Reds. And I learned via a telegram. So my father and I were playing golf, and my mother and my sister were at the golf course, and they brought me the telegram from the Cincinnati Reds informing me that I had been drafted in the 9th round.
Did you think when you found out of your selection?
I thought I was going to Riverfront Stadium and playing in the major leagues the next day. But I learned very quickly that I have to go through the minor leagues first. And it took me 5 seasons in the minor leagues to finally make it to Cincinnati. So it was a long journey, much longer than I expected.
Right, I read that. Your first experience in the minors at the age of 21 was playing for the Billings Mustangs in 1983, where you left a record of six wins and 2 losses and 2.42 ERA and 5 saves. What can you tell me about that experience?
I think the biggest thing for me was when I played at Billings in my first professional baseball season, I learned that I had the ability to play with other players who had been at bigger schools, higher draft choices, and it proved to me that I could make it in professional baseball.
You were a starter in a college, and in the minor, you were placed as a reliever. How did you make your move to the bullpen?
I had a manager my rookie season in Billings, Montana, who told me that he felt like I had the ability to be a quality relief pitcher because I could throw strikes. And I wasn't a big guy, so he thought durability may be an issue for me if I were to be a starting pitcher. So he said, let's try relief pitching. And I said, I've never been a relief pitcher. I don't know if my arm will respond to being a relief pitcher. So he said, well, let's try it and see if it works. And I have to tell you, immediately, it worked out great because my arm responded very well, much better than I thought. And I became a better pitcher by going 1 inning, 2 innings, or 3 innings than I was as a starting pitcher having to go, 6, 7, or 8 innings. So it was good for me to make that transition early in my career, but it happened on the very first day of my professional career.
But in 1986, you played AAA with Denver Zephyrs as a starter under manager Jack Lynn. What were the reasons for you to be included to the rotation?
I started the season in the bullpen. I was the only pitcher on our pitching staff that did not have major league service. So I was the kind of low man on the totem pole. So we had some double headers, and because we had double headers, we needed somebody, to come out of the bullpen and pitch as a starting pitcher. And I was given an opportunity to start, and I did well as a starting pitcher for a couple of games. And then my manager, Jack Lynn, said, "I want you to be my starter for the rest of the season." So I finished that season as a starting pitcher, and it went really well. I felt very comfortable as a starting pitcher. And in fact, the following season, when I went to Nashville, I was our opening day pitcher for the Nashville Sounds.
In the winter of 1986, you played in the Puerto Rico League with the Lobos de Arecibo. You posted a very good number as a starter, 5-3, and ERI 278 in 71 innings. What influence did that experience of playing in that league have on you? It's a different country, they speak a different language. Tell me about that.
Well, that was maybe the most important stepping stone for me to the major leagues. And the reason is that I had players on my team who were major league players. Dickie Thon, Carlos Maldonado, Jose Aquendo. And I was playing against players who were major leaguers, Benito Santiago, and the list goes on. All the players who were playing in Puerto Rico that winter. So it was it's a step for me up. It was a step for me to play with, and a step for me to play against major league quality players. And when I had success in that league, I think I proved to myself that I could play in the major leagues.
Have you learned any word in Spanish?
Poquito.
Okay. I'm reading your biography that by 1987, you were pondering whether to continue the organized baseball or if you wanted to look for a job outside of baseball. What can you tell me about that moment?
Yeah, I had gotten to a point in my career where I felt like it was going to be near impossible to make it to the major leagues. And my wife and I had our first child in September of 1986. So I wasn't making enough money to pay my bills. I couldn't survive on a minor league income. And I had my degree from Marshall University in computer science, and my wife had just obtained her degree. So we both have college degrees, but I was making no money playing baseball, very, very little money playing baseball. I couldn't hardly afford to buy diapers for my new baby. So I decided it's time to look elsewhere and look to doing something to, put my college degree to good use. So that's when we decided to look around and see what, other options or possibilities may exist. And I interviewed for some positions to leave baseball. And then at the end, the Cincinnati Reds, they gave me a little more money, and they also invited me to Major League Spring Training Camp. So it was my first exposure to the major leagues. I was not on our 40-man roster, so it was a big step for me to get my foot in the door.
In 1987, at the age of 25, you started your fourth season in the minor. On that occasion with the Nashville Sound, keeping you as a starter. Did you think you could go up to the majors that season?
I thought it was important for me to get as many innings as possible and have as much success as possible to finally make it to the major leagues. I knew it was going to be very difficult. At the time, the Cincinnati Reds had a very good team. They had a good pitching staff. They were deep. They had good talent. So I knew I was going to have to perform extremely well to have the opportunity. Unfortunately, I was given that chance. I had a slow start that season, but after a very slow start, I picked it up and was doing really well when the Reds needed a pitcher in late July of that season. So that was when I was initially promoted to the major leagues.
That's right. In August 1st, 1987, you was your major league's debut with the Cincinnati Reds. Can you tell me who who notified you of your rise to the MLB?
Yeah, my manager, Jack Lind, he he told me that he called me in his office after a game and asked me, he said, "What are you doing tomorrow?" I said, "Well, we have a game." He goes, "That's right, we have a game." He goes, and he gave me a plane ticket. He said, "But your game is in Cincinnati." He goes, "You got a first flight out tomorrow. You're going up to Cincinnati." I said, "Like, really, for not an exhibition game?" He said, "No, you're a major leaguer." So it was really very memorable. A lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of many years of hard work, and many people who helped give me the opportunity to earn that promotion to the major leagues for the first time.
What was the first thing you did when you found out you were joined to the Reds?
I know I called my wife. Everyone was so excited. I called my parents, and I grew up in a small town east of Cincinnati. And when I made my debut in August of 1987, I think half of my town was at the ballpark in Riverfront Stadium in Cincinnati. So it was a very exciting time for us, one we'll never forget. And I think we were there for like maybe 4 or 5 days, and then I had to go on my first road trip. But it was a really special time for all the people who were there for me along the way. It was very special for all of us to have a chance to celebrate me finally making it to the major leagues.
The Red manager was Pete Rose. What does it mean for you to play for your childhood idol?
It was a dream come true. I mean, just making it to the major leagues was really nice. Making it to the Cincinnati Reds was even more special. But having my favorite player of all time be my first manager, that was icing on the cake.
Your debut was against to the San Francisco Giants in the sixth inning when your team was losing 7-0. And the first hitter you faced was the pitcher, Mike Lacoste, who you rolled out to third base. Excuse me. How did you feel when you got off the mound at that time?
It was a big sigh of relief. I think once you prove that you can do something, you understand now inside uh, the confidence now that you can do it over and over again. It's not just once. You have to feel like you can continue to have success. And once I had the opportunity to, break the ice and get through my first game, I then had confidence that I can pitch in the major leagues for a long time. And fortunately, I was able to do that.
You were the number 40 while you were with the Cincinnati Reds. Was there any special reason to use that number?
The only reason is that is the number they gave me, and I was just happy to have it. No special request.
Okay. How was your time with the Cincinnati Reds in 1987 season? Which player did you have the best relationship there?
Yeah, I had a chance to play with a lot of those players in the minor leagues that was on that first team with me. So it was good for me to have some younger players around to help guide me through. Guys like Barry Larkin and Paul O'Neill, some younger players on the team that were helpful for me to feel comfortable, and they would give me some confidence. Sometimes when you struggle, you need somebody to talk to about it, and those guys were there for me.
And August 2 in 1987, you pitched against the Giants again. You got your first major leagues win when the Red did walk off in 11 innings to beat the Giants. what did you feel when the game ended and you realized you were the winning pitcher?
It was very special because a couple of days earlier, I made my major league debut. And then that extra inning game, I wasn't expecting to pitch. And because we had a lead, we were winning the game. And then unfortunately, our closer was John Franco, who eventually saved 400 games in the major leagues. And John Franco had a bad day and the Giants tied up the game. And then we went through a pitcher after pitcher after pitcher. Finally, my pitching coach came down and said, if we don't score, you got the next inning. And my heart started pounding crazy, and I was very nervous. And I went out and had a 1-2-3 inning. And then we came in and Eric Davis hit a home run to walk off for the win. So it was a very memorable win, and it was just really special. And after that game, we were heading on our first road trip, but it meant a lot to me to get my first major league out of the way so fast.
On February 15, in 1988, you were traded to the Kansas City Royals for outfielder Van Snyder. What did you think when you found out about the change?
I was very excited. And the reason is because my debut with the Reds in 1987, I had some good games and some bad games. I was not very consistent, and I didn't feel like I had a good chance to make the major league team in 1988. However, when I was traded, I felt like I was going to a team that I was going to have a really good opportunity to make their pitching staff. And the big reason is my pitching coach in Kansas City was the same coach that I had in Puerto Rico in 1986, Frank Funk. He was our pitching coach in Kansas City. He was my manager for the Lobos de Arecibo. So I felt good about going to a team that had a pitching coach that had a great deal of confidence in me.
Did you take it as an advance, that the change? Did you take the change as an advance in your career or as a rejection of the team that signed you to professional baseball?
No, it was a good opportunity for me. And when I went to the Royals in February of 1988, the very first day I was at spring training camp, the general manager informed me that I was going to go back into the bullpen. They wanted relief pitchers. They needed relief pitchers. And they liked my numbers career-wise in the minor leagues as a relief pitcher better than a starting pitcher. So I went back to being a relief pitcher. That spring, I went to Omaha to start the season, but shortly after, I think late May, I was promoted to Kansas City to stay.
That's right. You started the 88 season pitching in the Omaha Royals in AAA. What did the Royal organization tell you about not making the major leagues roster at the start of the season?
Well, they told me that they want me to go back to the Omaha to work on relief pitching again. So it was a demotion to AAA, but for a good reason. And fortunately, I went there and I pitched very, very, very good to start the season. And when there was an opportunity, when they needed a pitcher in Kansas City, I was the one they called. So it was fine. It was a short stay in Omaha, and for good reason to get back to the major leagues.
That's right. In June, you are promoted to the big team, to the major league. And the June 4th, you make your debut with the Royals against the Mariners, Seattle Mariners. Can you comment on how was your experience in your first game?
I don't remember that game. I remember getting called up, but I remember getting my first save a few days later. We were playing the Oakland Athletics, but I don't remember the game against the Mariners. I don't remember who I pitched against. Just too many games and too long ago for me to remember it. But I do remember this. I remember the first time walking into Kauffman Stadium. It used to be called Royal Stadium, but how beautiful the stadium was. The fountains in the outfield, it was breathtaking. It was a very, very memorable experience. The first time I walked onto that field.
When you When did you join to the Royals using the number 21 instead of the 40 you used with the red? Was there any reason for that number change?
No reason, but I was happy with 21 because my anniversary, my wedding anniversary is January 21st. So it was easy for me now to remember my anniversary.
So it's a good support.
Yes.
John Watson was your first manager with the Royals. How was your relationship with him?
Very good. John Watson was a very good communicator. So you always had a good understanding of what was going on, how things were, and he never made you feel like you didn't belong. He was a very, very good communicator.
What was the manager and pitching coach with whom you had the best relationship at the Royals?
I think Hal McRae was probably my favorite manager. However, when Hal McRae started, when he first took over as a manager, it was really difficult because he had never managed before. And he had to learn how to handle pitching staff. He had to learn a whole lot about managing. And we didn't see eye to eye initially. But after a few weeks, we started to understand each other, and he became very supportive of me. And we did, we clicked. We had a really good player-manager relationship. And I really hated to see Hal McRae leave the Royals after the 1994 season, because he had done a really good job in putting together a very, very good team. And unfortunately, because of the strike of 94, 95, that was the end of his career with the Royals. And my favorite pitching coach was Bruce Kieson. Bruce Kieson was a really hard-nosed pitching coach. He taught you how to be tough. He taught you how to be in control. He taught you how to take charge and protect your teammates and protect yourself. And not as much for the mechanics, because I didn't really need the mechanics. I had good mechanics, but he was really good for the psyche of a pitcher.
Okay. As we mentioned, of June 4th, 1988, you debuted with the Royals, and Dan Quisenberry will still of the roster. Quisenberry was released on July 4th. Did you get a chance to interact with Quisenberry? He gave you any advice?
Yeah, Dan Quisenberry was a great teammate. I think he could see the writing on the wall with regards to maybe a changing of the guard, so to speak. And he wanted opportunities. He wanted to be a closer, and things had not gone well for Dan Quisenberry during that season, and as a result, he asked to be released by the Royals, and they released Dan from the Royals. But I was in spring training with Dan Quisenberry that season, so I got to know him there. Then when I was called up and spending time with Dan Quisenberry in the bullpen, he was really, really like a big brother, like a someone who gives you some very good advice. And then after Dan Quisenberry retired, and when I was still pitching for the Royals, he would come back and he would talk to me. He would come out to the bullpen and during batting practice and interact with me. And he and I became better friends than we were teammates, because I had a short period of time as a teammate with Dan, but we had membership at the same country club and played golf together and went on golf trips together. So I got to know Dan much better as a person than as a teammate.
Sadly, he passed away early.
Yeah, he sure did. And that was in 1988. He was inducted to the Royals Hall of Fame. And it was very sad to see someone who is so valuable to a community and to his family to pass so early. But he was a very, very special man.
In 1989, you take off the role of closer for the middle of the season, achieving 7 wins and 3 losses, ERA 1.37, and 18 saves in 24 opportunities. Despite this performance, the Royals sink the National League Cy Young winner Mark Davis with the San Diego Padres to assume the role of closer with the team. How did you feel about that negotiation wherever you would lose your closing status?
I was very disappointed initially, really disappointed because I felt like I had earned the chance to be the closer based on my performance from the 1989 season. And when I left after the season in 1989, John Wathan told me, he said, "Hey, go home, work hard this winter." He goes, "You did a nice job for me as my closer. I want you to be my closer next year." And then when we signed Mark Davis, I was shocked. I thought, well, maybe I'm going to be traded. Maybe I'm going somewhere. And he said, no. He goes, "We had a chance to get Mark Davis, best relief pitcher in the National League last year. We want you to become the best setup guy in the American League." So I had to accept that role. Unfortunately, for our team and for Mark Davis, he did not perform the way that he did in the National League. So I was given a chance to become a closer again.
On April 29, in 1990, in a game against the Rangers, you become the 28th pitcher to achieve an immaculate inning. When a pitcher strikes out all three batters he faces in one inning using the minimum possible number of pitchers, 9. What can you tell me about that performance? Someone told you that you made an immaculate inning?
Yeah, I came off the field and somebody said, "Hey, you just tied a major league record." And I said, "Okay, I understand." And I thought maybe 1,000 guys had done that before. And I later
Only
learned
28 in that moment.
I later learned that only 7 in the American League had done it. So
Wow.
it was a unique accomplishment. But the thing I remember about it is one of the batters I faced was Pete Incaviglia. And Pete Incaviglia was a big, strong power hitter. And I don't think I threw any strikes to him, but he swung at all 3 pitches. So it was just, I wasn't trying to strike out, anybody. I was trying to make good pitches, and I made good pitches, and luckily I had the immaculate inning.
Over the course of the 1990 season, Matt Davis didn't go a good job, and John Watson again gave you the responsibility of closing game. You made 24 saves, and from there, your career was consolidated. Did you feel like it was time for Jeff Montgomery to prove you were an elite closer?
Well, my job was to go out every day, 162 games a year, and be in a position to help my team win a game. And I didn't care if I was an elite closer. I didn't care how many saves I got. I just want to be consistent, and I want to be reliable. And I want to be a player who is available for my manager anytime he needed me for the 7th, 8th, or 9th inning, whatever it might be. And really what happens is if you do that long enough, eventually people recognize you as being elite. But it was not what I was, setting out to accomplish. I just wanted to try to be the best player I could every day I played. And if I had a bad game today, I'm going to forget about it. I'm going to come back tomorrow and try to have the best game I can have. If I have a really good game today, when I go to the ballpark tomorrow, it doesn't help me. So I have to be good the next day as well. So I just would prepare every day exactly the same, to be ready, to be reliable, to be consistent, be dependable for my manager.
In 1992 season, you were called up to your first All-Star game. What can you tell me about the call and the game itself?
It was very rewarding because to me, once you are named as an all-star for your league, it puts you in a category that everybody understands where you are with regards to your peers. It was a tremendous, tremendous honor. I didn't get a pitch. I only pitched 2/3 of an inning, and I think I gave up a couple of hits. I got a couple guys out, and I left the game. And when I left the game, I got to think who came in. Rick Aguilera came in to get the last out of the inning, and he gave up a home run. So two of my runs scored, but that was okay. It was just the chance to stand on that first base line and be introduced on national television for an all-star. That was a very, very memorable experience.
In your career, you attended 3 All-Star games, 92, 93, and 96. What was your favorite All-Star game among the 3?
Well, the first one's always special, but the second one was even more special for me because it was in Baltimore, and Camden Yards was my favorite ballpark on the road. So it was a chance to be in a great ballpark, having a chance of, on my second All-Star team. We won our first All-Star game in San Diego. We had a big win. I can't remember the score, but we scored a lot of runs. So we won that game. And then in 93 in Baltimore, we won that game. I think I pitched the 8th inning and had a 1-2-3 inning. So that was very special. It's close by. A lot of my family, a lot of my friends from Ohio were able to drive to Baltimore to be part of that experience.
We come to the 90-93 season, in which you saved 45 games, leading the American League and tying the Royal record for games saved in a season. In addition, you were awarded to the Rolai's Relief Award. What can you tell me about that season? Any special story you want to share with us?
I think the biggest thing is we had a really good team, and I felt like I was an important part of that good team. And to go out and to be given a chance to pitch in a lot of games in big situations and be successful, that meant a lot to me. And I also, when you have a season where you accomplish, a record, or you do something special, you have to be given opportunities. You have to be in a position that you can't create it yourself. Your team has to create that situation. And they give you the ball and ask you to deliver, ask you to be the one who gets that last out of that game. So it was a lot of fun. I remember the last game of the season, I needed one save, the last game of the season, to tie Dwayne Ward with the Toronto Blue Jays. And we were playing the Texas Rangers, and I was able to get the ball in the 9th inning and make that happen. So it was a very memorable way to finish the season.
But the time when you reached 45 saves in 1983, the save record for the one season belonged to Bobby Thigpen with 57 saves.
Right.
Then in 2008, that record was broken by the Venezuelan player Francisco Rodriguez, who reached 62 saves with the Angels Anaheim. Do you think that this record of save game could be broken?
It could be broken. It's the unfortunate part about when a pitcher has that many saves in a season is normally, if you look at the record, after those seasons, the pitcher's health declines. So like Bobby Thigpen has the 57 saves, and then shortly after his arm was no good. And same with Francisco Rodriguez. He had to become a different type of pitcher, after he had the 60+ save season. So it takes a lot out of you. And I think nowadays teams understand the risk of pitching too much, and they limit players. So teams, if they have a really good relief pitcher, they may limit their opportunities just based on the fact that they may become injured. So it might be hard for somebody to break those records because teams may not give them the opportunity to pitch that many games.
What is your opinion of Mariano Rivera, who was the historical record in the MLB of 652 saves?
Well, first, he is a very quality man. For the Yankees, John Wetland was the closer. I think it was 1995 or 1996. John Wetland was a closer, and Mariano Rivera was a setup man. And he pitched a lot. He pitched, well over 100 innings. And I kept saying, his arm's not going to last very long. But I was so wrong. He became so good. And just to watch him go out and really make hitters look silly with only one pitch. He really used one pitch to
The
do
cutter.
almost everything with his career. But uh, now that I'm doing television for the Kansas City Royals, I've had a chance to get to know some players and do some interviews with players for our television broadcast. And I had a chance to interview Mariano Rivera, his final season, and I had a chance to sit down with him and have a very nice interview with Mariano Rivera. But I just appreciate him for a player for sure, but maybe more for the kind of individual that he is.
That is a good person. In 1993 season was a George Brett last and an active player. As a witness to the end of the career of the future Hall of Fame, how did you live that story?
Well, he was the ultimate teammate. George Brett was a player who was a great player, but also a player who made everybody around him better. He was great in the clubhouse. And if you ever were in a situation in a game, if you could find a way to get George Brett to the plate with a chance to win a game, he would probably win a game for you. He was very, very clutch. He came through in big situations. And I just remember seeing him do so many special things. He could have continued to play. He was our best hitter in 1993. He could have continued to play if he wanted to keep playing, but it was just a situation where it was time for him to move on. And he's still in the Royals front office. He's still involved with the organization, but he was ready to move to the next stage of his career. And one of the most special things that I remember him doing was winning the batting title in 1990, becoming the first player ever to have batting titles in 3 different decades. So 70s, 80s, and 90s. And the last game of the season, he didn't even have to play, and he could have won the batting title. But he told our manager, John Wathan, I want to play. I want to have a chance to go out and get some hits. He went out. I think he got 3, maybe 4 hits in his last game as to win the batting title that year. So, but again, he was just a unique, very special athlete and a great teammate.
In your career, you had the opportunity to play with 2 future Hall of Fame, Barry Larkin and George Brett. What can you tell me about these 2 great players?
Both players very similar. They understood what it took to win. They were players who they weren't looking out for Barry Larkin. They weren't looking out for George Brett. They were looking for opportunities to help their team win. And I was in Vermont in the Reds system in Double-A, up in the Eastern League in 1995 when Barry Larkin was drafted. So he came to our team, was his first professional stop along the way. And you could tell immediately that Barry Larkin was going to be a special player. Very, very bright man, very gifted athlete. And just to see him do things effortlessly on the baseball field told you that he was going to have a special career. And obviously Hall of Fame recognized that.
According to Baseball Reference, you played with 282 players in your career. Which player did you make the best friendship? What were the players that most impressed you?
Well, probably the person I got to spend the most time with off the field was Mark Gubicza. And Mark Gubicza is still a broadcaster for the Angels, the Los Angeles Angels. So I still stay in touch with him. I still see him during the season, but he made me feel very good about being a major league player. And I am actually a little bit older than him, but he was called up to the major leagues at a young age. I was 25. I think he was 21. But so he had experience when I got to Kansas City, but he took me under and helped me really kind of feel settled in. Him and Brett Saberhagen and Steve Farr is another teammate of mine who had a special relationship with. He was a relief pitcher also, Steve Farr. And I spent a lot of time with him in the bullpen, talking about baseball, talking about life, talking about, a little bit of everything. But he made me feel good about my chances of sticking in the major leagues.
That list of more of 200 players include 5 Venezuelan players: Bo Diaz, David Concepcion, Over Moreno, Dilson Torres, and Edgar Cáceres. Did you have a friendship relationship with any of them?
Well, Bo Diaz was my first catcher in the major leagues. Bo was the catcher for my first game. And, unfortunately, after the season, Bo had the terrible accident and lost his life. So, but it's just so fun to watch players from different countries and players from different eras, and some having a chance to play with players that I grew up cheering for, like Bo Diaz. That's very special, and Davey Concepcion and those type guys. Those were the special relationships that you are fortunate to be able to establish and develop over the course of your major league career.
What were the injuries that affected you in your career?
I had a shoulder surgery in my career, and that was kind of it was a short setback. I only had problems for a short time with my shoulder, but my hip, my last season, I injured my hip. And that was probably the most difficult injury because as a pitcher, you need to have your legs. And with a sore hip, it was hard for me to be effective. And that's why I retired after the 99 season, was because my hip was bothering me. I eventually had my hip replaced. And then even after that, I had my second hip replaced. So I have 2 artificial hips.
In November 1995, you declared yourself a free agent. And despite having offers from other teams, like to the end of the season, you preferred to resign with the Royals with $4 million and 70.5 million of 2 years. What factor influenced you to prefer Kansas City offer over an other line of present to you by the Toronto Blue Jays for over $6 million?
My wife and my children. That's it.
Personal reason. The most important reason.
Yeah.
In July 20, in 1996, against the White Sox, you got the 229 save game with the Royals, breaking the historic record of the team that Dan Quisenberry. What did it mean for you that you break Quisenberry record?
I felt like I had accomplished something that I felt was impossible. I didn't know that anybody would ever be able to break Dan Quisenberry's record. It was so far out there. It's such a big number, and I just never felt like something was going to be possible, especially when I lost my role as a closer a couple of times. Like when we signed Mark Davis, and when certain things happened, you just felt like I'm probably not going to have the chance to break that record. But when it finally happened, it was real. It was rewarding. It was payment for all the hard work that went into doing what I do.
Which hitters were the most hardest for you to get out?
I'll name a few. The player I played the longest against that was the most difficult out for me was Harold Baines. And I was certainly happy to see that Harold Baines was inducted to the Baseball Hall of Fame. He was maybe not as big of a name, but he was a great hitter. And he was with 3 or 4 different teams during the course of my career. And it seemed like every time there was a big situation against a team that he was on, I had to face him, and he was really good. He had really good numbers against me. The player that stands out probably is, that I didn't play a long time against, but 4 or 5 years I played against was Don Mattingly. Don Mattingly was a great left-handed batter, just a guy that I had a difficult time with. And another right-handed batter that I had difficult time with is Cal Ripken. And it wasn't like home runs, but he would always find a way to get a big hit against me. I could get 2 strikes on him, but he would foul off, and then finally he would get a hit. He just had a way of doing some damage in big situations, and certainly happy to call Cal a friend, and playing in some all-star games with Cal. That was another special guy.
I saw that Juan Gonzalez hit you at 3 homers in your career.
Yeah, I didn't remember. I remember one home run. I usually remember all the home runs, and I do remember in 1993 when I got my 45th save. I had to face Juan Gonzalez for the 3rd out. I think he hit a ground ball to shortstop for the 3rd out of the game. But yeah, he was a great player. In the early 90s, he was as tough of as now as there was. Him and Frank Thomas, some big guys in the American League there that were. I know they're both MVPs or MVP candidates almost every year.
On August 25th in 1999, against the Baltimore Orioles, you got your 300 save game. Can you explain me, how do you feel when you got the game saved?
Well, it was a sigh of relief because 300 saves at the time was a very, very big milestone. I think maybe at the time I may have been only the 10th player with 300 saves. So it was a big milestone. And that year was the year I hurt my hip. I had the hip injury, and I really, I think I needed maybe 8 or 10 saves going into the season to get my 300 save. And I just thought it was going to happen automatically, but it took almost the whole season because of my injury. So it was a memorable day, but I was very, very happy when it was over. It was hard. It was hard to get there. I felt like I had to limp across the finish line.
At the end of that season, you retired. Sadly, the last game scheduled for the Sunday, October 5th, was suspended due to rain. What did you feel when you realized that your career ended that day?
Well, I remember they canceled the game early because it was cold, it was rainy. There was no way you're playing baseball. And I was okay with that. There's no big deal. I remember when I took my uniform off the last time, it really hit me. It hit me hard that was going to be the last time ever that I put on a Major League Baseball uniform. And it was very emotional. I cried for a long time. And, but after I cried for 20 minutes, I showered, I went home, and I never looked back. I never was sad again. But just that one moment when I realized no más baseball.
No más baseball. I begin a new era. In 2003, you were elected to the Royal Hall of Fame. What does it mean for you that have been elected to the Royal Hall of Fame?
It was kind of a bow on the big package. It was kind of recognition for the entire career. It was a special day for them to put everything on pause and recognize you on the field with with all the fans in the stands. It was something I had expected, just because I had pitched more games than anybody in the Royals history. I had more saves than anybody in the Royals history. I expected I was going to be getting into the Hall of Fame, but when it happened, it made it really, really, kind of the reality of it. It made it really special, and to have my mom and dad and all my family in the stands and on the field for that. It was one of those days you'll never forget.
What was your greatest satisfaction and your greatest disappointment in your career as a major league player?
I think the biggest satisfaction was just making it to the major leagues, and then fortunately able to pitch for 13 seasons in the major leagues. Biggest disappointment was never having a chance to play in the postseason. We had some really good teams in the first half of my career, up through 1994 when the strike hit. And then after the strike in 94, the Royals kind of started a trend of rebuilding and going with younger players. And that's when, things started going, downhill for the Royals for a long time. 29 years it took the Royals to get to their first postseason in 2014. And those 29 years were part of my career. My 12 seasons in Kansas City were right in the middle of those 29 years without postseason. So that was my biggest disappointment, was not having a chance to play in a postseason.
If you hadn't been a professional baseball player, what would you have liked to be?
Computer scientist.
Do you live in Kansas City?
Yes. During the majority of the year I live in Kansas City. I spend January, February, and March in Florida.
But it's very cold in Kansas City in that time.
Yes.
What does the city of Kansas City represent to you?
It's a great Midwestern town. It's a great baseball town. It's a great sports town. And if you have the opportunity to play Major League Baseball for the Kansas City Royals, everybody in the city loves you. They take really good care of you. And now that I'm a television broadcaster for the Kansas City Royals, it's a really, really nice opportunity for me to have a career in baseball after my baseball career ended. So we love Kansas City. It's, we could live anywhere, but we have decided to live in Kansas City. All 4 of our children live in Kansas City. They're all adults. They all live in Kansas City, 4 grandchildren. So it's home for us.
What do you currently do?
In the winter, I don't do anything, but in the summer, I go to the ballpark every day and go on television and talk about the Royals. So
Okay.
that's my that's my year. 6
Like
months.
a broadcaster, that right?
Yeah, television broadcaster. I'm also in the radio business, but I don't do much with regards to the radio.
Okay. Let's talk a bit about the Royal team right now. How did you experience victory in the 2015 World Series for the Royals? How do you live that experience?
Well, it was just one of those experiences that it's hard to imagine how meaningful and how important that was. And not just for the team, not just for the Royals, but for the entire city. You become a city of champions. You become a city that everybody in baseball, everybody in the country recognizes as elite, as a team that has accomplished something very special. And I'll never forget, a few days after the Royals won the World Series, having the parade in downtown Kansas City. It was a beautiful fall day, and we had 800,000 people come out for the parade, and it was unbelievable. It was a good explanation point on a outstanding season.
How do you see the Royals team for the 2021 season?
The team will be better than it has been for probably the last 4 or 5 years. It'll be a team that has a chance to be competitive. The last time the team was competitive really was probably 2016. So 17, 18, 19, and 20. Last 4 years, we're rebuilding seasons. But this won't be a rebuilding season. This will be a competitive season. This team probably doesn't have the depth and doesn't have the experience to win a World Series, but it has a chance to make the progress this season to put itself in a position in the very near future to be a very competitive team.
What do you think will be the player who can give the best contribution to the team the next season? Excuse me.
Adalberto Mondesi. I think he is going to be one of the most outstanding players in all of baseball.
He is very fast.
He has learned a whole lot. He's learned a whole lot about himself. I think he understands the importance of being healthy. I think he has worked very hard this winter to be the player that can go out and play. 150 games during the course of the season. He's going to hit for power. He's going to hit for average. He's going to steal bases. He's got a tremendous arm. He's got range. He has every tool that you could ask for, and he's only getting better. He's only getting better. So when he's healthy, he is as good as anybody. He struggled early last year. I think he had some things going on, maybe personally, and with the COVID and all the issues going on. I think he was really struggling early in the season. But when the last month of the season, you could tell that he really kind of hit stride and became the player that everybody understands he can be.
He finished the last week very hot, and he selected the player of the week, I remember.
Right. Yes.
Do you think the hiring of Mike Minor, Carlos Santana, Michael Taylor, and Edwin Santana is enough? Should the Royals management look for more players?
They will. They will continue to look for players. In fact, Dayton Moore, our general manager, will say almost every time that you talk to him, we will do something today to become a better team. We are going to do everything possible within our budgetary restraints to bring in every player that can possibly help our team be a competitive winning baseball team. So yes, they are looking hard to improve every day. And I think they're going to probably have a chance to sign one or two more offensive players, particularly left-handed batters. And I think he would be looking to add some arms, be looking to add some depth for that bullpen. So I think, yes, he's not finished yet. They did a lot early, in October, November. The Royals did a lot with the players you mentioned, but I think there are some more coming to help even improve more.
What do you think there are the starting rotation should be for this season?
Well, Brad Keller is going to be at the top of the rotation. We know that for sure. Mike Minor is going to be in that rotation. Danny Duffy is going to be in that rotation. Brady Singer is going to be in that rotation. Chris Bubich is going to be in that rotation. I think there's a chance if things work out well for Irvin Santana, they may look at potentially putting Danny Duffy in the bullpen. He's open to being in the bullpen. They have some young arms. They have three guys in particular: Daniel Lynch, Jackson Kowar, and Asa Lacy. Those three guys are really high on their list to eventually get them into the major leagues, probably at some point during the 2021 season. But there are just a lot of possibilities. And this is a good problem to have. When you have too many good arms, that's a good problem to have, because it's been a long time since the Royals have had this kind of depth in their arms in the organization. So I think the rotation will be solid. I think every day that they go out there, they'll have a chance to win a ball game. And you have things, you normally have to have about 8 to 10 starting pitchers during the course of the season, because you're going to have some guys that are injured. You're going to have things happen. You're going to have guys that maybe struggle or are ineffective. So you're going to need 8 or 10 pitchers, starting pitchers, for the season. So, those 6 or 7 guys I mentioned, plus, the guys that are kind of on the horizon for being ready to come to major leagues, I think they have the starting rotation pretty well covered.
Do you think that this season we will see the debut in major leagues of Jackson Kowar, Daniel Lynch, and Asa Lacy?
I don't know about Lacy, because he's probably a year behind because he just got drafted. But I think there's a chance. The good thing is this: there's no artificial restraints. The organization looks at players and they say, when you're ready to play in the major leagues, we will give you the opportunity to play in the major leagues. So Asa Lacy and Daniel Lynch and Jackson Kowar, they will earn an opportunity sometime to play in the major leagues. And maybe it's 2021 or 2022. That all is dependent on their performance and what the organization looks at as far as their needs, and looks at as the best path, the best opportunity for those players to develop and be part of a long-term rotation. I mean, 5 years from now, you could be talking about a rotation as Brady Singer, Jackson Kowar, Daniel Lynch, Asa Lacy, and Chris Bubich. 5 guys who are going to be around 25 years old. I mean, it's amazing. They have so many good young arms.
What does Salvador Perez represent to the organization of the Royals?
Well, especially with Alex Gordon no longer on the team, I think Alex, was the most tenured player. Salvador Perez will now become, along with Danny Duffy, the most tenured players on the team. And you need some veteran guys. You need it for the clubhouse. You need it for the performance on the field. You also need it for your fans. You need the fans to have somebody that they can buy into, somebody they look forward to seeing on a daily basis. And what Salvador Perez does every day is he provides a smile. He provides a smile for his teammates, for his manager, for his coaches, for his fans. And he also provides performance. And those are just intangibles. So, between, players like Salvador Perez and Danny Duffy and Whit Merrifield, you expect a lot from those guys to be leaders, to go out there and help out. And then you add some outside talent like Carlos Santana, that only helps add to that mix. So, they have a nice mix of very, very good people. That's one thing the Kansas City Royals do their homework on the background of the player, the credibility of the player. They want good players. They don't want just great athletes. They want good people as well.
Do you think the Royals will offer to the Salvador Perez a long-term contract to guarantee his continuity with the Royals from 2022?
I think so. He's in he's in that stage where it would be a good time, maybe either during the winter or in spring training, to announce a contract extension for Salvador Perez, expressing the value that he brings. And 2 years ago, he missed the whole season with Tommy John, and he had a Tommy John surgery. And I remember Dayton Moore, our general manager, saying, that surgery probably is going to give him another 10 years to play baseball. So they feel like he's going to be a valuable long-term commodity to have on this team.
Well, Mr. Montgomery, thank you very much for the interview. It's really been a pleasure talking with you, knowing to the first-hand information from one of the best pitchers in the history of my favorite team, Kansas City Royals. It's a tremendous experience for me. You have any comment before finish the interview?
Well, Carlos, first, I want to thank you for giving me the chance to spend some time with you talking baseball today, and especially talking about Kansas City Royals baseball. I'm so fortunate to have had a chance to play baseball, and I'm even more fortunate to have a chance to play for such a great organization and still continuing being part of it. But anytime you can talk baseball in the winter here in the United States, it's really fun, because we call it hot stove. It's a way to kind of get warmed up for the upcoming season, and you've given us a chance to do that.
Please say hello to the viewers, to the Hablando con los Royals, please.
Hello from the U.S. to the Royals.
Well, thank you very much. Muy interesante lo que compartió con nosotros Jeff Montgomery en el transcurso de la entrevista. Muchísimas gracias a Jeff por la atención brindada. Si les gustó el video, les agradezco que por favor les den like, opriman la campanita para ser notificados de nuevos videos, y por favor, si no lo han hecho, suscríbanse a nuestro canal. Nosotros en nuestro canal Notas de Béisbol y en nuestro programa Hablando de los Royals estamos muy orgullosos y satisfechos de contar con cada uno de ustedes. Soy Carlos Parra Machado y estos son Notas de Béisbol. Hasta una nueva oportunidad.